Hey guys, welcome back. We have special story time. I'm here with Gary, King Pokemon, who has an incident that he'd like to share with us. A little bit of a theft incident that happened, but I'll let him tell the story here.
Yeah, it's a pretty big one too. It has to do with two popular cards that I've taken. My wife Twan said it was over 1,000 pictures I've taken with those cards at all the conventions and with all the kids and all that. Uh, it was a BGS 9.5 Gem Mint First Edition Charizard, signed by Gary King Pokemon and Chumley, and then the Shadowless 9.5. And in Denver, Colorado last year at Collecticon, I believe it was October, in the midst of doing, meeting people on the floor and that, I got somebody got into my backpack that was attached to my walker I was using because of a broken leg. And I saw, come to think of it, that means I couldn't have chased him down,
That
even if I
too.
seen him
Yeah.
take it. And so they got inside my backpack, took the cards, those two cards, and they were gone. I noticed a short time later that those were gone. And at the time, and I know some people are going to say that this was kind of silly and that, but it's what I did, and I had my reasons for doing it, and that was I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell, the my friends in the hobby. I didn't tell the convention owners who I'm friendly with. I didn't tell anybody except my wife, that had happened for two reasons. The first reason is I didn't want to draw too much attention to it just in case they ever popped up again.
They're two
If I
very
made,
identifiable cards. I mean, they're graded, first of all.
yes,
Not to mention, there's only so many in that kind of condition, regardless.
right.
I'm sure there's lots of
Mhm.
photographs, and we got hollow pattern, etc. to also identify them by. So
Right. So that was the first reason I didn't want to draw attention to it because I didn't want the thief to run scared. I wanted him to be confident, in his thievery. And and then the second reason was I didn't want to, draw any negative attention to the conventions and that, because these guys, the vendors, the customers, the people who run the conventions, they do so well, they try so hard. I didn't want to ruin it because that would be a
mm-hmm.
pretty big story. Gary King Pokemon loses 100,000, 150,000 Pokemon cards at
Mm-hmm.
Collecticon Denver. You know
But
what
I
I
mean,
mean?
whenever you get that many people together, it doesn't matter if it's an event in person, online. There's gonna be some bad people that are there that don't necessarily represent everyone else. So
Well, that is very true. Yeah, in fact, thieves go there to target you and just might follow you for 2 days looking for just the right opportunity to
mhm.
do something. And yeah, so that's for sure. There's going to be some bad apples in there, and it's kind of our responsibility to be a little bit smarter than I was, to protect those things a little better. And
Maybe that lends to, like, maybe it is the right thing to wear it as a necklace and not
yeah.
not in a backpack.
You're right. Yeah, they would have had trouble getting it off my neck. Yeah, you're right
Mm.
about that.
One of those like keychains or whatever, the retractable thing. So like someone takes a
Oh
picture
yes.
with it, but then it'll snap back to your necklace.
I'm too. I think, Mike, I'm like a little too bit naive. I'm not.
Hmm.
I never expect bad things to happen. That's what my wife says. She says, Gary, you're too trusting. You lay things down. You just think everybody is has good intentions, and yet they don't.
Hmm.
Especially at things like that where they can target you. And but you know what, Mike, I've actually learned. I went to a convention in Orlando just like 2 weeks ago, a
Mhm.
Collecticon. I didn't bring them. I didn't bring anything, to take pictures with. And I mean, I kind of hate to say that because I must have had a couple dozen people saying, did you bring this or did you bring that? And I had to say, well, no, I had a bit of a problem. It's too bad that I have to
Mhm.
be skeptical like that. And, but it had an effect on me. Maybe I've learned now, besides wearing it around my neck,
Yeah.
just don't bring them at all. They're not going to get, stolen. And it's kind of like what you present, every day to the community is that just always be on the lookout, do your research, look, deal with people that are, pillars in the hobby, get
Mhm.
information, dig. Don't let yourself get ripped off. If you're super careful, you will not get ripped off. So,
Yeah, anytime anyone gets scammed or ripped off, it's usually like it's a moment where they probably even considered the fact that it was either too good to be true or it was sketchy, and they just kind of like went with it anyway.
yes.
There's always that little moment where you even get the hint of like too good to be true, or like this could go bad. Like you got to back up and kind of take a look from the outside, whether it's a card that you're excited for, a deal or whatever. Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
think about it
Yeah. Well,
twice.
yeah, it's too bad. It's too
Mhm.
bad, but yeah, that's life now. And, it's always been, obviously I've been around a long time and there's been scams and that, forever. You're always going to have people wanting to take advantage of
Mhm.
you or a situation. But I just think it's, and I know I hate to blow smoke up your ass, but I mean, that's one of the reasons I
Mhm.
respect you. So besides being long time, having dealt together with things from years ago, uh, that's one of the reasons I respect you so much is because, you're doing that and you don't have to do it. And also you're fearsome. I mean,
Although
you're
sometimes,
not, yeah, no, you're not going to be, influenced or scared or afraid. I mean, people talk lawsuits. It's so funny how you respond to those every time,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But
the never-ending onslaught of that's defamation. How dare you? That's
oh my
private info.
god.
How dare you share my private information about how I was ripping off a store or something like that? Like, what? But yeah, it's
Well,
ridiculous.
a lot of people go a certain distance. You go all the way with it, and it's
Hmm.
really made a difference. And that's why I thought, this kind of shows the results of a channel like you've built. It shows that if you do get involved, and even though it was just Gary this time, it can be anybody.
Hmm.
Anybody next
Absolutely.
time. And I made a mistake. It was because I wasn't careful. Uh, even Gary can make mistakes. Well, believe me, you
Hmm.
can too, and in one way or another. And so I'm just hoping that this will just continue. Continue to build. To build information and skepticism, and you always say just be careful. Do your due diligence, and I
Hmm.
got lucky. It's as simple as that. I mean that's a 100 to 1 shot that I got those cards back.
Yeah.
This
So
guy
you're
had to
gonna get
be a
into like how they turned up.
yes, yes. Well, for 2 months after the Denver show, I didn't about 2 months. Uh, I didn't. I just sucked it up. Every day I thought about it. Every
Hmm.
day it bothered me. Uh, even I mean, not only because they're important cards to me, but because it is a lot of money. It means it's probably 100,000, 150,000 cards. Uh, that's going to make anybody upset and sad. I'm more the sensitive type. I was sad. I was really hurt by this whole thing, And I had to live with that every day for 2 months. And then one day I got a text from a guy in California who apparently I had dealt with before, a very high-end collector. And apparently I dealt before because he had my phone number so he could text me. And he said, "Hi Gary, how you doing? How's the family?" And then he said, "Do you know anything about these two cards?" And there were my two cards, both of them.
Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me because as soon as, especially if they look anything like they did when they were stolen, like when you got high-end Charizards that are just appearing out of nowhere, I would imagine most people are probably going to, anyone that's been in touch with you is going to ask you about them if it looks suspicious in any way.
Right. And suspicious is something like paying $45,000 for them. That's suspicious. Because they're worth double that at least. Mm. And that's going to be a red flag right there. So I got that text and I told him, I said, "Yeah, those are my two cards that were stolen from me in Denver last October." And he apparently saw a video by Shivam, and where it showed me with I think with a kid holding up the cards and taking pictures or something. And so I said, "Yeah, they were stolen from me." That's
so that's a little bit funny too, because they were stolen from the event, but also you bringing them to the events and having those pictures be featured ended up being one of the reasons why you got reached out to about the stolen cards.
Right. And also one of the reasons I think we got, which the audience will know in a little while, that had an effect on the result, actually, because there's hundreds of pictures on the internet of me with the kids and with the parents holding those two cards. There's no question whose they were, right? Yeah. So we'll get into that. So I told the guy, they were my two cards stolen in Denver. And he said, "Well, I just bought them from a guy in New Jersey. I paid $45,000. The guy has already shipped them via overnight FedEx, and they're on the way in transit, which means the thief or whatever no longer had them. And he didn't have them yet. And so we talked. Of course, by then we're on the phone, talking to each other. And I said, "Well, don't be surprised if when you open that box, there's nothing inside, or maybe G.I. Joe packs or something, right?" So
use Kleenex and a half bottle of lotion, or who knows,
or Canadian beer, or something like that.
Canadian beer's got to be worth something down there, right?
That's right. At least that
imported.
There you go. Yeah. And so I said, but give me a call, this afternoon or tonight when FedEx delivers, and we'll talk. Well, he did call me that night. FedEx came, he opened the box, and those two cards, exactly the way they were in Denver in my hand, were inside the box. They were still slabbed. They still had my name and Chumley's name on the case.
So that blows my mind. So you have a criminal that stole these from you, that decided that he was going to sell them still in the slab, which is, you can still identify them that way. Not to mention the card itself is going to be in that condition, is going to all of a sudden trigger flags if you're missing one. The hollow pattern, again, we could match it up that way. But the fact that he left them in the case, and he left the signatures on the case, I'm kind of wondering if he didn't know who actually signed the case. Maybe they're not a Pokemon person, and
that's I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Right. It is a
We'll have
possibility,
to see
though.
if we can figure that out. But
Yeah, maybe Alex, the fellow who got them, would have an idea about that.
hmm
Uh, uh, it's
so this
almost like the
this
guy didn't have a concern about anything. It's like he wasn't
hmm
worried about anything, and that's
yeah.
curious too. I mean, using his own PayPal address and
Yeah, but
uh,
I don't know. We've seen time and time again, the Pokemon criminals are not exactly they're not bright.
no,
I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it to begin with.
you've said
So,
that a bunch of
yeah.
times. They're not the brightest of
hmm
sorts, that's for sure. And so Alex told me, yeah, they're in there. There they are. They're exact same condition. And I said, yeah, well, I said, Alex, I want you to, maybe this is Alex's story, but it is something I
hmm
told him. I said, Alex, I want the cards back, and I'll pay the 45,000 that you paid to pay. He sent me the PayPal receipts. He made two payments, one for 30,000, one for 15,000.
hmm
And I said, I'll give you that, that money back, and it'd be really nice if you give me the cards back. And I said, there's, no way in the world would I let you pay a price for, for your, being honest and digging into this and that. And he said, listen, let's get this guy. And so that takes us up to that point, where, now the cards are returned. We're gonna figure out how we're gonna get this guy.
Yeah, for sure. What was the I think you'd mentioned that the story that the seller was telling, like how his backstory on how he had the cards.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, that's a good one, because how do we know that he wasn't just some dealer that somebody came sold the cards to,
hmm
and then he's just reselling them? How do we know that this guy was the thief or connected and not knowingly, with the thief?
hmm
And well, for me, the reason I know that is because when Alex, and again, this is secondhand, but Alex will tell you, when Alex asked, well, where'd you get these? Where'd they come from? This guy lied.
hmm
Now, if you did not get them under faulty circumstances, why would you lie about it?
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, these were my brothers, and he's had them for a long time." And
Yeah.
so as soon as
Meanwhile,
I
they were
heard
just
that,
stolen very recently, so
yeah, right,
even if he wasn't the person that took them out of the bag or that
hmm
stole them on that day,
yeah,
for him to like just make up story instead of just saying like, "Oh, I just bought them and I'm looking to flip them" or something like that.
right,
Which I
yeah.
mean, maybe that's not how they word it, but they're not going to go out of their way to say that it was like a relatives or something. Well, it's always the relative stories. It's always just like
Yeah, I know.
my
Uh-huh.
uncle used to work for Wizards of the Coast, or it's like
Right.
my dad works at the factory at the Pokemon factory.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. As if that lends more
yeah,
credence to it being the truth.
yeah.
Yeah. So as soon as that part got settled, uh, I asked Al, I said, well, how are we going to do, are you going to go through PayPal? He said, I'm going to go through PayPal. I'm going to let them know, that I got the cars, but I found out that they were stolen. And he should talk about that, because I don't really know the whole story
Mhm.
with that. Uh, I said, and what I'm going to do is call the Denver Police Department and file a report. Uh, because I think, like I've heard you say, PayPal might not jump when Gary says something, but they will jump when police reports are involved.
Yeah.
And
And even if they don't jump and necessarily do exactly what you want them to do, they'll
mhm,
often be able to like at least freeze the funds until they can figure out what they need to do with them, instead of like letting them the wrongdoer cash out with them.
right, yes,
Same with eBay at times. It's like certain scenarios with scammers or whatever, they might require you to actually file a police report in order to resolve something. So it's kind of their way of just like he said, she said. Well, okay, now you have to actually make a statement where you're gonna then you're lying to law enforcement if you actually do. So
Right. Yeah. Well, fortunately, PayPal did take that very seriously. I called Denver. I gave my report over the phone. They sent me something to sign electronically, and they had somebody in a detective contact me. He did about 2 days later, and he told me that he said, "Listen, we can get those. We can file criminal charges against Alex, the one who's helping me, because he purchased stolen property, and that's who we have to go after." And I said, well, listen, if that's the case, I want to drop everything because I'm not going to do that to this guy. And I know Alex will tell you that that's all true. And they said, well, listen, let us get in touch with him, and we'll go from there. Now, interestingly, that was the last word I got from Denver Police Department. Except 2 days later, PayPal refunded $45,000 to Alex.
Nice.
How that happened, maybe Alex knows a little bit better than me. But within 2 days, and PayPal doesn't operate that way, very often. But I think they took the police report serious. I think Alex sent it over to them. They did all that. So
I mean, even then, it's a serious amount of money. There are definitely some charges that can be placed there, and people don't realize it. But whether it's collectibles, it doesn't matter if it's Pokemon cards or not. When you have, I don't know if it must count as wire fraud as well because of the PayPal payment. So it's also a good thing that he used PayPal for both the transactions and didn't do something like pay this much up front, receive the cards, and then make another payment, and then. Like if you did another payment with like Venmo or something that's non-refundable.
Oh, true.
That could have been more of a mess. So.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not even 100% sure that it was friends and family, or you're going to have to ask Alex, because for some reason I don't think I ever asked him that. That would be one of the first questions, right? I would ask. But I didn't think of it. So.
Because that's never going to make it. I'm not saying that necessarily with the police getting involved, but it would have released the funds right away. So it must have been goods and services, and then like when it was getting delivered, then they would have held the money for a certain amount of time. Maybe the criminal was just banking on the fact that, like, hey, maybe I can just like stall out long enough to cash out and.
Right. Yeah, well, that'd be something interesting to find out. I'll be interested to watch this just to find that out, when you talk to him. So, this has really been quite an experience. I'll tell you, there was no chance there was going to be this good of a result. No chance when it happened last October.
Yeah. And that quickly.
I know.
Insane. Yeah.
Even after I found out he was getting them, I figured at the very, very best, I'm going to get those cards back for $45,000.
Yeah.
At the best, no other good scenario could have occurred, and this, because of this community, because of somebody being honest and straightforward, and actually caring about their what they're doing and about their reputation and all that. I mean, it just is so unexpected, and I'm so lucky. I don't deserve, because initially it really was my fault, for not being more careful. It's not like I was hit over the head and somebody grabbed my backpack.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. There's a lot of people that like bringing your cards around. I mean, even if you have them locked up, if you have a game store or anything like that, like if there's a way.
Yeah,
Someone will definitely try.
yeah. The game store thing is that you cover a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not unique to those few instances. I mean, that
Yeah.
happened. The new store that opened by us about a year and a half ago has been broken into 3 times, and
Yeah.
that's in a very nice neighborhood.
The worst part is like the amount of damage that gets done for like usually the amount of stuff that's actually stolen, and then
Yeah,
it's stuff that they can't even sell. So it's just like it's insane. It's absolutely insane. I'll
yeah, really.
I'll cut us off here. And definitely I think there should be a follow up to this. I'm gonna reach out to Alex and see what kind of information he has. So if you guys want to stay tuned for that, thank you very very much, Gary, for sharing the story. It's an interesting one. I'm glad that it sort of resolved itself pretty quickly.
Yeah, well,
But
thank you,
yeah, we'll
thank
see
you,
what else we can find, guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
tuning in. See yas.